Hey everybody, welcome to ASJ Astronomy. Today I want to walk through a video for Nina and its advanced sequencer. Specifically, I want to take a look at this setup which allows multi-day imaging and as well as safety monitor checking and essentially a no hands approach to running multiple days. Kind of the premise behind this was to be able to feed Nina a target and what images I want, maybe 100 images of HSO or RGB, and just have it do it. And it will schedule and do all the heavy lifting for me. And in the end, just basically send me back something that says, hey, your image is done. And of course, this works great with the scheduler in Nina and the advanced scheduler that they have already. You can have a start, a middle, and an ending sequence within your advanced sequencer. But I hadn't found anything really to do the multi-day piece really well. And I think there's probably some other people out there using this and doing this. This was just my approach as to what I found to work for my setup. So I thought I would share it. And so let me walk through the process. It's kind of a long one. There's a lot of components that have to go into this. I'm going to assume everybody is already used to using the advanced scheduler here and setting up the imaging interface the way they want it, as well as their equipment is all well set up so you can connect and disconnect from all of your equipment. Most of this is going to assume that you are either remote, which means you have safety monitor check somewhere, as well as you're able to uh, power on equipment as you need. I'm going to assume that those basics are covered. If you're not remote, maybe you are at a home location. I use this at my house with a couple of domes, but I have all that safety monitor stuff in place as well. So those components are required to make this work safely. With that said, if you don't have safety monitor stuff, you probably are just running each night individually as you see. So it probably doesn't really apply to you. So let's take a look at what you need to get started here. First off, let's dive into the plugins. You're going to need this couple key plugins. One of them is the Target Scheduler. This one's by Tom Palmer. It's the heavy loading of this entire system. It's going to allow you to do a lot of things. And I'm going to go into detail on how to use this because you have to know how this works in order to make the sequence work. So I will spend quite a bit of time going through this whole thing. The other thing you need is these sequencer power-ups. There's a couple of critical power-ups which add to your, basically your sequence, gives you some special instructions here, specifically with safe, non-safe situations. So you need that plug-in. You also need the connector plug-in. This is a really good one that allows you to turn on and off equipment. So disconnect and connect equipment, which we need to do automatically. So I would say those are your three key ones. Now I also add ground station and I throw in a pushover so that it talks to um, and sends me text messages when something isn't happening. I think that's another really good one to have. Besides those, I think everything else is pretty optional. So make sure you got the connector plugin, the sequencer power-ups, and the target scheduler. Uh, Tom Palmer also makes this target planning plugin, but it's not necessarily required to have this. It's just kind of a nice little plugin to go through and plan things. So we just need the scheduler. Um, I'm going to dive into all of this sequencing, which I know that's probably the key that everybody's going to be looking for. I'm going to also upload this JSON file, which has my setup in it, so you can have kind of a shell starting one to begin with if you want, and then just customize each section rather than trying to go through and follow a video and add these to your system. That might be easier for people just to come in here and load maybe a default like I have and kick it in there and then put in your specific setups. So if you're worried about following along with that, maybe just watch along and then I'll have you upload that at the end. So let's take a look at the scheduler. This is the piece that I think is the most important. This plugin is actually really amazing. And I really think it's probably going to, or I think it should. I believe it's got so much merit that it should earn its own spot over here. It's really quite powerful and could easily be under a sequencer or framing and actually increase the spacing and the usability of this area. Right now, you have to go to plugins and you have to click on the scheduler, and all your work happens through this and the other menus down below. I could really see this kind of being moved over user interface wise to kind of give you more width and better layout. But right now, this is how it's working. And the way it works is you set up and feed this basically all of your targets. And you're going to feed it and keep it with active ones, which will show up in green here. And if they're done, they're going to show up in red like this. And it's no longer an active project because it's met all the requirements and all the images. And I'll go into that in a little bit. But really, what I want to have happen is as long as I just keep feeding this targets, and requirements that I want, it's going to just keep doing this every clear night. And it's going to open my domes. It's going to check the safety of it. It's going to power on the equipment. It's going to shut down in the night or in the dawn. And it's going to sit there and wait all day for me. And then the next day, it's just going to start up again through the sequence. And I don't have to sit there every day and say, okay, start, stop, or oh, I got 5 images good last night. Go ahead and take now another 20. This system actually will go through and grade your images. And so you may say you want 100 of them, and it may require to take 120 because it graded some of them and it didn't like the grading. And so it kicks out some of those images. Just an example, as I get into this, you can see I took some HA on this. I wanted 45. It accepted 46, it acquired 47 of them. So it kicked out a couple based on the grading of the image, and I'll explain that later. So let's dive into this real quick. First off, you set up a profile, and I have 2 domes, so one of mine is just this dome. I don't think the profile changes much. The next piece you have here, this layer is the project. And you can see this is a mosaic, so the project might consist of more than one panel. It might be a project like this where it's just a single frame. So in this case, I kind of named them the same thing because it is the same. It's just a single target image. Whereas if I'm doing a big mosaic, I might have multiple panels in here. So there is kind of a reasoning to the layering here to figure out. Now, there's 3 key settings in here. One of them is the profile setting, one of them is the project setting, and one of them is the target setting. And so the one that's awkward for me anyway was the profile setting. And when you look in here, you can see all your different projects, but the setting button is right here. If I want to change the profile settings, I come in here and I edit those. And if I want to change the target settings, I come in here and I edit them here. It's just that the profile one is a little bit different up here. So that's kind of the difference. Now, before you even start these, you have to set up what are called exposure templates. And these are just simply what filter and what time are you okay with taking images at? When can it happen? Does it need to avoid the moon? And what is your exposure time, bin settings, so on and so forth. So for example, in this profile, I set up RGB and HOS. My HAs are all 300 second. My RGBs are all 180 second. Now, I might want to set up another RGB set that maybe is 60 seconds. That's fine too. Now, when you set these up, there's one little caveat that caught me and that I might pass along here. I'm going to edit one of these. And you go through the settings and you set up all your setup, but it's the timing. This is where it determines when your imaging will happen. You don't actually set a time, you set up in the filter that this is going to be allowed only at nighttime, only at astronomical, nautical, or civil. And what caught me off guard here was it's talking about acceptable twilight. So I kept thinking astronomical was it was going to take from astronomical to astronomical, and that is not the case. It's taking all the way up until nautical because it's taking the twilight. So this actually means when I set it to astronomical, this is going to be nautical to nautical. And that caught me off guard because I couldn't figure out why it was really triggering. Just something to look at. You can set up your dithering here. If you want to avoid, and maybe you're in a real dark site and you do want to avoid RGB during the moon, you can set up some moon avoidance here. You can turn on classical avoidance. You can say, I want the moon to be down or whatnot for this filter, and it will actually take that into calculation as it's taking pictures. Pretty slick system, really. And then you got to save these. Again, you can copy these, delete them, or you can also throw them out. So this is where the settings are. Again, if I wanted to create another one, I might say red 60 or red 300, so red 180. So I know what exposure length is on each of these. But these are your exposure templates. And once you set these up, then you can come up here and start working on your targets. So let's take a look at the first thing. First off is just the profile. Let's run through some of these. This is where you're going to set up your grading. And basically the system will go through and look and grade based on RMS, star count, HFRs. You can set up whatever statistics you want here and what percentages you're okay with. For example, RMS threshold for guiding, I think it starts out really high. And I lowered that quite a bit. If anything's really out of whack, guiding gets terrible. I wanted to throw the image out. So you can go through and enable what you feel comfortable with. These are all based on sigma factors. 4 is really high, really including a lot of things. So if something's really, it's got to be really out of whack for things to get thrown into the grading there. But it will look for these things and grade your images, which is crazy cool because then I don't have to go through and say, okay, I got 20 images of the side of my building last night. Go ahead and throw those out. It just does it for me and starts retaking those images into its scheduler. So this is probably a really good, important piece to set up. What else on here? I'm going to go through. Let's go ahead and say that you got your profile set up for your scope and set up. You may not change that a whole lot. You might keep that profile, and I don't see that changing for a lot of people unless they're often changing mounts and cameras and scopes because the targeting is based on that. So let's take a look next at the profile or the project for one of these. And so this is where you would go in, and I'm going to go ahead and create, let's say this is a mosaic. I can go through here and determine the minimum altitude. So I don't want to start taking this target at all unless it's above 15 degrees, maybe change that to 30 degrees, whatever your specific requirement is. And I only want to start taking it if it's up for 30 minutes. So if I just see it for just 15 minutes, I don't even want to bother having to slew to it. You can set up, are you allowing a meridian window? How often do you want to dither? Do you want to turn the grader on or off? You may want to do your own grading, that's fine. So you could turn this off. I kind of feel like it's a really good, like rough grader. So I've left it on. If it's a mosaic, turn it on or not. I'm not sure what the setting does, but I have a feeling it has to do with the percentages down here within your scoring rules. And so let's take a look down here at these scoring rules. This is the part that determines the actual schedule of your target. So for me, the meridian flip penalty is not really that big, so I put it at a low percentage. But in this case, it's a mosaic, so I have it at 100%, meaning I want to make sure that I capture all the panels more and more each night than maybe a single target. So I bumped this up. Is the meridian window a priority or not? Percentage complete, meaning If it's 0, just go ahead and take all the images in one target one night. But if you move it up, it might have 40% done or 30% done. So I want to increase the percentage complete score for my project. So these are really cool to play with because it determines down here when you schedule things and what it will do. So for example, you can come down here and just run a sample night. So I'm just going to pick tonight and I'm just going to hit run. And this is exactly what it's going to try to do. It's going to take panel 6, 4, 5, 2, 6, 3. And you can see it's trying to capture a little bit of all the panels in this evening. And you can adjust that. So if I think the mosaic completion is not as important, let's say I've moved that to 25%. Okay, we'll come up here and you got to save your changes every time you make one. Now I can come down here and run it again, and you can see it changes. Now it's not so worried about completing my mosaic. It's going to get just panel 3 and 2, and it's going to do a meridian flip, and it's going to do 2 and 4 again. And so that score is not nearly as important as maybe percentage complete or what is setting soonest. That might be a priority for you. I could bump that up if I wanted to. So these determine the scoring weights, determine what the engine is going to pick up and start to run. So again, I'll edit this, and to me, the mosaic completeness, I like to get a little bit of shots of all the panels. I'll save that and I'll just rerun tonight again, and you can see it changes back and it schedules differently. So play with those. It's a pretty cool feature within the project. Again, that is determining all of this stuff in these 6-panel mosaic. Now, if I have a project like this, where it's just a single image target, it might not matter. So my mosaic completeness is 0. I don't really care when it takes that. So that's just what the scoring engine does there, or the scoring rules for that. So let's take a look now at the target piece. So you set up a project, you've given it a name, you make it active, you set up when you want it up, above, and all your scoring rules. Now you set up a target, and now I'm running a Raza, so I have to change filters manually. So that's why I have just a couple of filters here. If I look at my other scope with a filter wheel, I could actually set up all of my filters and how many images I really want. So you just simply come in here. I'm going to edit this, and this is a mosaic. And you can import the coordinates, which is pretty cool. You can import the coordinates from the framing assistant. So if you come over here to the framer and you set up a mosaic, just import the coordinates and it brings all these panels in with the correct coordinates, the correct rotation. All of that is set up for you. And so it's a really slick process. But you could get them from a planetarium, you could get them from other sources. So whatever your target is, it's just basically the coordinates. And then these are the exposure plans, and this is where you just simply add an exposure. You come in here and you pick from one of your exposure plans, which are these over here. And you say, I want 20 of these images, and that's all you need to do. Once you're done with that, we can save this target, and it's going to throw those in there and try to take them when I'm doing it. So I'm going to delete that so I don't get it in here. Now, as you take images, and I've got some set up here right now as an active project, it's using the count to determine what it's going to take. And you can see that panel 1 is not in here. And that's because panel 1 is already full. I've acquired 45 of each of these filters. It's 100%. And you can also run through and you can manually update these each night. So like if I come back the next day, it doesn't actually update these. I gotta click this button here and it will update and show, hey, I've got now 55 images, and so on and so forth. And once it runs out of exposure plans, it will turn red on you like this, and that means it is done. So you can see over here, um, I took a whole bunch of sulfur. I wanted 45 of them. It had to take 80 of them because one night it took a picture of the side of my dome and messed up. So they were really bad. The grader picked that up. It kicked them out. And the next day it took a bunch more until I met 45 that were okay. And so then it will move on. You can see panel 2 is green, and I've got this many. My HA are all done, but now I'm onto this sulfur, and I've taken 19, and it's accepted 19 of them. So you can see the different percentages as I move through here. It's actually smart. It will really fill these up, and it does a really good job at that. You can see if I come down here to this one, I've taken some, but it didn't accept any of them at this point. It hasn't run through and had enough to grade. So once it gets enough to grade, it will take these. But I'm onto this other project, and so you can see it's not even going to put this project into my run in the evening because of that. So this is the scheduler piece, and this is what's so important is this is the only place I really need to go to set up my targets. So now, if I move on to the scheduling piece in Sequencer, and I know this is probably what more people are interested in, is how does this work? Well, I have to have certain conditions in here with that target scheduler in order to work. So that's why I thought the importance of showing that. Now, let's jump over here and take a look at the sequence piece. And I'm going to kind of start with a broad view because there's so much in here. And then I'll kind of narrow down to a sharper one focus and look at them individually. But essentially, we know there's a starting, a middle, and an ending section, and we don't use that now. We're going to have loops inside of loops in order to get it to go extra days. So I don't do anything in the starting section. I just simply, if there's failovers, if there's failures, push them over to me on pushover. Other than that, there's nothing in the opening global starting sequence. That's all going to happen within my loop here. I do have an ending sequence. So when I start here with my core section, the only loop I have is while active projects remain. And this is part of that targeting scheduler section. So find them over here. Okay, the targeting scheduler section has a few things here, and that's the only loop condition. While I have active projects, do this. If I ever run out of active projects, maybe I'm gone for a couple weeks, at least dump out here and just park everything. This is where I park the dome, park the scope. I shut down PhD, disconnect all the equipment, the basic shutdown scripts, and just send a pushover notice to me that, hey, everything is shut down. So that's just the ending sequence. It's basic and probably the same that everybody runs. The difference here is I'm running inside of this instruction set just that one loop. And next thing I do is I want to track when my day starts. And there's certain things I want to do just one time. For example, I want to only start up all of my equipment, open the dome, cool it down, cool the camera. All of that's only going to happen one time, and that's going to be at sunset. So what I've done is I broke this down into time segments. Daytime, which is sunrise to sunset, and then I have sunset to nautical dawn. And you might say, well, why sunset all the way to dawn? And I image in the nautical dawn zone because that's just what I do here. And that is basically set up in your scheduler on your exposure plans. I set this to astronomical, which means I get all of that twilight. So that is this core time here. And then I have another one that says nautical dawn to sunrise. Now, the unique part about Nina is when does time flip over? And they used to do it at noon, and now they've changed it so that it's at sunrise and sunset. Those are the two critical times when it will change when astronomical dawn is, when astronomical nighttime is. It changes those clocks at sunrise and sunset. So I thought it was important to put those in here. So I create a global variable here just called daily run. It's set to 0. Um, that way I can track. Um, and I'll show you on here now. This is just my wait time during sunrise and sunset. So it's during the day. What do I want to have happen? I don't want it to do anything except for just wait till sunset. I do have the safety monitor connected, um, and that I can show you later on how that's going to come into play. But other than that, I leave everything is already powered off. Everything is shut at this point. So that is my sunrise to sunset section. Now, once we hit sunset, we want to do a few things. And this instruction set needs to loop basically while targets remain tonight. So if I have something in here and it's available tonight, I might have targets in here that are only available in December and it's May. So while they're green, that's when this will happen. I also want to loop this until nautical dawn. So for me, it's nautical dawn section, not astronomical. And this again ties into your exposure plan. When do you want exposures to happen? So for me, simplicity, I take all of astronomical darkness and I take all of nautical darkness in here. So it's going to go this loop no matter what if I got targets and until dawn. So that's the only thing that will break me out of this section. So I'm basically now into my start, my imaging, and then my unsafe section. And I have these sections, and I'll kind of collapse them here so you can see. These section here, I've got an if section, and it's only going to run here if my daily run is 0. So I want this section here to only run once per evening. And if I open that up, it's going to be these 3 key areas. So at sunset, I'm going to power on my equipment and I'm going to open up my domes and let the whole system cool down at this point. So if I open this section up, there's a lot in here. And this is where I need to use once safe. And these are one of those power ups that you need over here. Once it's safe, I want to go ahead and start up. And we're going to power everything on, turn my switches, turn my cameras on, turn my focusers on, the dome. I'm going to unpark the scope. I turn tracking off because I don't want anything happening there. And then I open up my dome as well. So I open the shutters, I sync it. And you may need this, you may not, depending if you're a remote user. So this whole section is just once it's safe. If I'm doing this stuff and it becomes unsafe, all I want to do is just wait. I haven't opened the dome yet, so if I've just powered on equipment, I don't need to close the shutter because it shouldn't have happened at this point. So it's not really a big deal. For me, this is just power ups, is all this is. So that's the first right at sunset, what I want to do. Now I got to wait. Sunset to nautical dusk. This is where I have a loop, and all I'm doing is I'm just flipping through here every 30 seconds. So I've powered on the equipment at sunset, now just loop. If it becomes unsafe while it's waiting, I can park the scope and close the shutter. I'll wait until it's safe again, and then I'll just go ahead and open up the dome again. So it's not doing anything here other than just closing the dome and then reopening the dome for my safety monitor. Okay, so this is just a wait period. That's all this is. I'm cooling off my observatory. So you may need that, you may not. The next piece is nautical dusk. So what I want to do here is basically get things ready. I'm actually set at this point, I'm going to go ahead and unpark things. Let me open that back up. Let's save. If I happen to close during this wait time, I need to unpark everything and open the dome and synchronize it. But essentially, all I'm doing here is cooling the camera. So I don't want to cool the camera all the way up at sunset. I just want to wait until right before I start taking images. So I'm going to cool the camera and turn the dew heaters on, and I simply send a push over that, hey, I'm ready to image. And this is where I change my variable to 1. And so now I can't run any of this. You can see it right here. I can't run any of this sequence again. So once I get into the imaging section, all I want to do is image and jump to unsafe. Image, if I'm unsafe, jump to the unsafe section. And it's going to do this back and forth until targets remain tonight or until dawn. And so that's what I want. I just want this power up stuff to happen one time. This time I'm going to have scheduling and unsafe stuff. And just to look at the unsafe stuff, it's really basic. It just stops guiding, closes the dome, waits until it's safe, and then it reopens the dome. And so it just jumps to here when it's unsafe, and then it jumps back into my main target and starts imaging. So this only happens once a night. This happens if it's unsafe. Otherwise, I'm now into my actual imaging section. And your imaging section contains, and this is where the target scheduler comes in, so handy, is it just drops in here and just does everything for you. And so you don't have to sit there every day and update these schedulings of targets. This is where I would put in all your meridian flips, autofocus after your filter changes, after temperature changes, restore guidings. I have an ASI camera. I put this reconnect camera on a failure because every once in a while it fails for a USB connection. So it just reconnects for me. I'm going to sit here in a loop while it's safe. If it ever gets unsafe, it will break out and do my unsafe section. And then it will just jump back in here and start again. I'm also only going to do this while targets remain tonight. So once I start into my instruction set, all you do is drop in here one of these target scheduling imaging containers. And that is this schedule container. Drop it in here. It looks empty. It will populate with the targets once it starts playing. You might notice there is a play and pause button right here, and it does everything for you. It knows and schedules those targets, so we don't have to really manipulate anything here. This targeting schedule container does have some cool features like triggers, things you can do before a wait or after a wait. Maybe you want to park your scope and then after a wait period, uh, unpark your scope. You could do that. For example, you have a target that's coming down here and then you have to wait a couple hours and then maybe your next target comes up here. You could park it or close a flat panel, keep dust off things. But you don't have to do any of these triggers. You don't have to schedule all your flips and you don't have to schedule, all the autofocus stuff. It doesn't have to do that within every trigger. This really should be just left empty. The only thing I do have in here is I do have after a target completes, I put in a push notice to send me that says, hey, your target, the whole project is completed, moving to the next target. So at this point, this is where I could download my images and grab them. And so really I get just every week or 2 weeks a push notice and I look for it that, hey, your project's done. It's finished grading them. You've got enough images, time to look at them. So this is what the target scheduler container looks like. And it's empty. And you might say, well, that's kind of weird. How do I know what's going to happen? And that's where you can come over to your target scheduler and you can run these scheduling previews. You can pick any day in the future and you can run it and see what panels it's going to take. You really only need to go to the one in the future because it doesn't know if these are all going to work. If they don't work and some of these don't pass the grader, the next day it automatically adjusts and it says, well, I need 5 more of this one, I need 3 more of this one, and it goes ahead and does that for you. So the scheduler is pretty slick. The reporting feature over here is pretty nice too. I can come in and click my region and I can say I want panel 2 and it's going to pull up all this information, including some images of what they look like, and it will tell you if they're accepted or pending grading. You can click on any of these. Oh, maybe. Nope, I can't. Um, no, that might be down below. That's on the acquired images, perhaps. But you can see down here too, you can see what was acquired on what day. So these are really handy to look at. You can also see the statistics. So if you want to get into grading and maybe you don't want anything over FWHMs of 5, and a lot of these are under 4, or under 5, I could get rid of this one. So I could go make my grading, say kick out anything with over 5, or maybe your RMS or your eccentricity here, HFR, star counts. If they get too wild, this is where that sigma value comes in for grading. It'll kick them out. So it's kind of good to monitor that on the first, few runs so that you can kind of get with your equipment and see what's happening versus, you know, my equipment. It's going to be totally different what grading is acceptable for you, so on and so forth. So back over here to the sequence, just to kind of summarize this again. This main loop now becomes your start, your end, and your unsafe controls. All of that happens within this one sequence here. So uh, as we look down here, let's say I get to the end of the night and my target scheduler here is all set up. It's running all night. Okay, I'm only running this until, what was it, nautical dawn, and remains tonight. So once I break out of this loop, what needs to happen is I need to shut down. And that's where my nautical dawn comes in. And so this is the section after. Close these up again so you can see these. Okay, this is my imaging sequence and my safe unsafe. It's hopping back in here all night long until dawn. And then I'm going to break out of that loop and I'm going to run my dawn sequence. And so night's over. I'm going to stop tracking, park my scope, close my shutter. I'm going to switch off a bunch of power things. I'm going to disconnect all my equipment. I have a little script here to shut my mount off so it's not running all day. And then I also set this variable now back to 0. So I've made it through the night. It's dawn. I need to wait until sunrise because time has to change. So I think these are going to be pretty critical steps for people to make sure they have here. So now I'm just going to wait until sunrise. As soon as sunrise hits, I'll close this guy. We now exit and we're back into our sunrise to sunset. My variable switches back to 0, and I now am back to doing the same exact thing I was doing before, which is just wait for the day. And so I just connect my safety monitor and I wait for sunset again, and now I'm inside of that loop. So this is how the multi-day piece happens, by just tracking a variable, and basically using these target scheduling conditions while projects remain. And then in here, while targets remain tonight, this is my nightly one. So this is kind of per night. This is per global. The nice thing about this sequence too is I can just start at any time. And I like how Nina shows you what the current value is of these variables. So you know just by looking at it that, hey, I'm going to get into this one time. And you can see I can just hit start and it's now going to wait. It's daytime. So sunrise to sunset. All I'm doing is waiting until sunset. If I want to stop this, I can. And now it's just, reset the whole entire thing. I don't have a whole bunch of setting and rescheduling to do within this sequence. It's pretty automated. So, and I can run it across a couple of scopes and do the exact same thing. So if I open up another one, just to give you a quick idea, this is just another dome, same exact sequence, but this one has a filter wheel on it, a little bit different setup. So these targets, you can see I flipped through. It acquired all the images of this target. It needed 31 of this one before it became acceptable. This target's done, this target's done, This one is still active, and this one is not even really started. So I could come down here just to give you a quick look of what it might do. I don't know what it's going to take tonight, but I could hit run, and it's going to take all of NGC 6823, so this one. And I could open it up, and it's going to say, hey, it's going to take green. And it'll show you all the actual exposures it's going to take that night. So it's going to take all of this and probably try to finish up the 100 that I'm looking for there. So same exact sequence though, just a different scope, different dome, different setup, but again uses the same thing: the scheduler, the sequencer, the Powerups, and the connector plugin. But it's virtually the same exact setup. The only difference here, I think, would be within my power ons and power off kind of stuff. This one has different equipment, so it's got a rotator, it's got different stuff. So this is where you'd probably customize your setup as well. So anyway, that is a lot of information. If I collapse it down to this, that is probably the easiest to view. Okay, so this is during the day. These are the time from sunset to dawn, and then this is dawn to sunrise, and then we're back up to sunrise again up here to sunset. So it's just kind of looping through here while I got active projects, and it's only going to do the nightly stuff while targets remain tonight. And anyway, that's how I did it. I'm going to upload this JSON to the link, or you can reach out to me if you need to, and I can get you that if you want. There might be some other ways that I think some other people are doing it. I think this just kind of what I came up with and kind of programmed myself. But hopefully that's helpful. I tried to keep it as clean as possible. And I tried to cover all of the safe and unsafe sections with safety checks. And I think most people will have that in a remote setup. So anyway, hopefully that was useful. You can definitely check out more of our stuff on asgastronomy.com. We have some other videos there as well. Thanks for watching.